Planning a trip to Walt Disney World is so exciting, but one of the biggest things you're going to have to factor in is the budget. With such a big trip comes lots of different expenses, so today I'm going to let you know what kind of things you need to budget for at Walt Disney World and give you a rough idea of what these may cost you, so you can go into planning your trip with full knowledge and be able to plan your budget. My name is Sophie from Most Magical Guides, and I make planning videos all about Walt Disney World and Disneyland Paris, packed full of tips and advice. If you do like that type of content and you like seeing trip vlogs from Disney, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. I'm going to break this video down into sections. I'm going to first go over the things which may be your day-to-day budget, then also things like special events, and then the other big expenses you're going to need to budget for at Disney World. So first up, we're going to talk about food. Food is a big part of any trip to Walt Disney World, and you want to be able to go out there and enjoy all of the meals that you've seen online and that you want to try. But to do that, you're going to need to budget for it. When it comes to quick service meals, on average, including the tax, a quick service meal is around $20 or $25 if you do add a drink. The average table service meal is around $60, but do remember, on top of that, you do have to add tips. If you eat at quick service restaurants, you do not need to give any tips. Some places now are asking, would you like to tip, in fast food restaurants, quick service locations, coffee shops, but that is optional. You do not have to. It's not traditional. It seems to be a post-pandemic thing that's come in, but you don't have to. It's only table service restaurants where you are expected to tip. And as I mentioned, tax is not included, so you will need to add that on top. Disney World actually sits across 2 tax regions, so the tax is either 6.5% or 7.5%. So if you want to get an average, I just use 7% on top of the meals I plan in advance, so I know I'll be covered. One of my big top tips is to make sure you check out menus in advance. This is helpful because you get to see the menu, so you can choose out what dishes you would like and know which restaurants you want to dine in and which ones you need to get reservations for, and then also you'll be able to see the pricing. This is super helpful because then it will help you budget in advance, because you will know where you're dining, roughly how much it's going to cost, and how much money you need to take for tax and tip on top. If you're visiting Disney World and you have taken advantage of the free dining credits offer, then you can really cut down your costs by using up the dollars you get from the dining credits. I've made a video all about the free dining credits, how many you can expect to get per person, and how to make them stretch, most importantly, so I will link that video down below. Another way to cut costs is to take things into the parks with you. You are absolutely allowed to do this, and what I like to do when I visit Florida is go to a supermarket and then get things like snacks, cereal bars, things like that to take into the parks to tide me over, and also for breakfast in the room. This can really help cut down your costs because they will be significantly cheaper, and if you're getting things that are non-perishable and can just be fitted into your bag, it's a really easy way to make sure you stay full but you keep those costs down. Next up, we're going to be talking about drinks. I've actually given this its own category because drinks add up very quickly, and believe me, you're going to be drinking so much more than you expect when you're in Florida because of the heat. It is worth noting that in the parks, a bottle of water can cost almost $5. Because of this, the cost of drinks over the course of your trip can quickly add up and be a much bigger expense than you were expecting. But there are lots of ways you can cut down this cost. One of these is to use the free water hack when you're at Disney World. If you go into any quick service location at Disney World, you can ask for a free cup of iced water. This is fantastic and will help you save so much money. If you are getting a meal from a quick service location, instead of spending out money on bottled water or soda, you can instead get this free iced water, and then that will help you save lots of money. And in fact, you don't actually have to even dine in a quick service restaurant. You can just walk in there and ask for the free cup of water. Another good option is to bring a refillable water bottle with you. I have a giant 1 litre bottle that is insulated so it keeps it cold the whole day, and this is so fantastic. If you take a refillable water bottle with you, you can either buy bottled water from a supermarket, which will be much cheaper, keep it stored in your room's drink cooler, and then fill it up each day to take into the parks with you. The parks also have free water fountains you can use to refill your bottle up throughout the day. Some people don't like the taste of Florida tap water because it's very different to ours. So what you could do is take those little bottles of cordial or squash that you could put in your backpack or bag, and then that will help you flavour the water. Another way to to cut down costs is to get the refillable mug at your resort. If you are staying at a Disney World hotel, you can buy a refillable mug that costs about $22 and you can fill this up for the duration of your stay. Now you can't refill these in the parks, but you are able to refill them at other hotels. So for example, if you were going to go to dinner one evening at a different resort, you could take your mug with you and refill it there. If you're at Disney World for around 2 weeks and it's costing you $22 for this refillable mug, that can be really cheap considering it's around $5 per bottle of soda in the parks. As I mentioned before, you're going to want to drink far more than you realise, so make sure you use these tips so that you can keep the costs down while staying hydrated. One of the most fun things at Disney World are the iconic snacks. I am sure you have seen lots of photos or even videos recommending which snacks you should try whilst you're at Disney World, so do make sure you budget for this. The snacks can be quite pricey, so it is worth checking out the menus in advance so you know how much to budget for the snacks you want to try. As I mentioned before, if you do want to cut down the costs, it is worth hopping over to a supermarket and getting some snacks there because they will be significantly cheaper than the Disney World snacks. But of course, if you are wanting to try those Disney specific, Instagrammable, amazing snacks, then make sure you budget for it and have the best time enjoying them. A top tip that I use when I'm in Disney World is a lot of the snacks are very large, so I use them as a cheap breakfast. A Mickey pretzel is around $7, but they are large and filling and delicious, so that is my go-to breakfast if I'm in the parks. You can also get things like giant cinnamon rolls, and all of these things are less than $10. Some of them are even big enough to be shared, so these are really cheap ways to have breakfast in the parks. If you do want to know what snacks you cannot miss out on, then make sure you head over to my Patreon page. There I have a downloadable snack list and a vegan snack list for Disney World, so you know exactly what you need to try whilst you're there. Next up, we're going to talk about tipping. As I mentioned earlier in the food section, tipping is expected in some locations, particularly places like table service restaurants, so I'm going to let you know how much you should budget for this. In restaurants, the average tip for good service is 20%. For average service, it's around 15%, and of course if you get excellent service, you can tip more than 20%. But as I'm sure you're aware, 20% is a fifth of your bill. This very, very, very quickly adds up to a large amount, so definitely make sure you add tips into your budget before you go to Florida. I know lots of people that visit and don't factor this in, and then they're very quickly running out of money and they can't understand why, and then when they realise that they're paying 20% of every single table service meal they have as tips on top, they're like, oh, that's where the money's going. That is where the money is going, and we were not prepared for this. There are also a few other places that you may tip. Places such as bars, where it's traditional to tip $1 per drink. If you use bellhop services and they deliver your bags to your room, it's around $1 per bag. Taxi rides are about 15%, and housekeeping, you tip typically $1 per person per night. If you'd like to know more about tipping in the US, I have done a video all about that, so I'll link that down below. Tipping is one of those things that isn't super prevalent in lots of countries around the world, but because it is common in the US, it's good to know in advance how much you need to take with you so you don't get any surprises. Now we come on to one of my favourite things at Disney World, the merchandise. Lots of people when they go to Disney World will want to take a few souvenirs home with them, so it's good to create a budget in advance just so you know how much money you can play with. It can be hard to know what to budget for, particularly as you don't always know how much things are going to cost, but for example, t-shirts on average are around $25 to $35 and ears are around $35 to $40. Those are some souvenirs that a lot of people come home with, so hopefully that'll give you a ballpark figure of what things cost in Disney World. And don't forget to add tax on top. One way to cut down the cost of souvenirs at Disney World is to head over to the outlet mall and go to the Disney Character Warehouse. This is the official Disney World outlet, and you will find lots of merchandise from the parks in here, but for much cheaper prices. Sometimes it will be things that are out of season, so you may find Christmas things in the spring or summer, but you do also sometimes find items that are currently in the parks already in the outlets. I never visit Disney World without going to the outlet, and I've got some amazing bargains from here, so this is definitely a top tip. Make sure you head there there and get things for much cheaper prices. Another good tip to save money is to keep an eye on the Shop Disney website. It often has sales, and here you can get things like ears, t-shirts, bags, accessories, backpacks, children's costumes, and if they're in the sale you get them for much cheaper prices. Shop Disney also do have merchandise from the parks, so if you can get them in advance for a cheaper price, then definitely do that. If you are like me and like to be fully Disneyed up with all of the clothing and the backpacks and the bags, then something I do is head to shops like Primark. Here you can get Disney licensed products, but they are much cheaper than official Disney products. For example, t-shirts like this one were £8, whereas as I say in the parks, t-shirts are around $25 to $35. So if you go to Primark, you can get things for a fraction of the price, but they will still all be Disney. If you are traveling with children and they're going to want items such as bubble wands or autograph books, then I would definitely pop to a US supermarket like Walmart or Target, and here you can get Disney branded products, but for much cheaper than you would pay in the parks. Because of the heat in Florida, you may end up buying impulse purchases of fans and cooling towels, but I would say get these in advance and you will get them much cheaper. If you go online, you can find so many products for really good prices, so I would definitely do this so that you don't get caught out having to buy a last minute poncho or a fan and spending over the odds for them. If you would like to know some products that you might need whilst in Florida that you perhaps haven't thought about before, then I would link a video down below where I let you know all of the products I was super glad I took with me. The next thing we're going to talk about is optional, but it's something you may want to consider, and that is Genie Plus. Genie Plus allows you to join the shorter Lightning Lane queue for up to 40 rides across Disney World. Recently, Genie Plus has changed its pricing structure, so now you can pay per park or you can buy a park hopper version. Now the price for Genie Plus does fluctuate throughout the year depending on how busy the parks are. But typically Genie Plus is anywhere between $15 in low season up to $29 in high season. In fact, we have even seen it go as high as $35, but with the new pricing structure, we're hoping the prices may stay a little bit lower. With Genie Plus, you buy it on the day, so what I think is really good is if you are visiting Disney World for 10 days or 2 weeks, then to visit the parks and get a sense of how busy they are, and then you may choose to add Genie Plus for a day or two of your trip. This way you're not paying out unnecessarily if you don't need it, if the queues aren't too bad, but you know you have it as a backup option if it is a busy time of year. Genie Plus can be a really handy way to cut down queue times and therefore fit more into your day, particularly if you stack it. So I would recommend Genie Plus if you are there at a busy time of year, or maybe you don't have many days in the park. This can be a really good option. And if you are wanting to use Genie Plus, just make sure you put the budget aside for it. Another optional thing that you may want to budget for are individual lightning lanes. Individual lightning lanes are a way to skip the queue for the most popular rides at Disney World that aren't included in Genie Plus. Yes, you heard that right, some of the rides are not included in Genie Plus and you have to pay extra for them. There are only a handful of rides at Disney World that have individual lightning lanes, so that's good news because you're not going to have to pay out for lots of rides individually. Just like Genie Plus, the price does fluctuate throughout the year depending on how busy the parks are. But because you are paying per ride, the costs can add up quickly, with rides costing up to $25 per person per ride. Two of the big rides that do have individual lightning lanes are Guardians of the Galaxy and Tron. These are two of the newest rides at Disney World, so are super popular, but you don't have to pay to ride them. Both of these rides currently have a virtual queue system, so what I would recommend is trying to get the virtual queue first, and if you fail and you don't succeed throughout the entirety of your holiday and you cannot miss out on these rides, then you have the option of buying the individual lightning lanes for them. Because individual lightning lanes you buy on the day, I would wait until you are in the park to again assess how busy they are and whether you even need to buy them or not. But if there are some rides that you know you cannot miss out on, I would budget for them just in case you do want to buy individual lightning lanes for them. Something else you might want to do whilst you're at Disney World is to go to a special event. Throughout the year at Disney World, there are a range of have different special events, such as Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party, Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party, after our events, H2O Glow Nights. There's so much you can do. These are separately ticketed events, so if you have bought your tickets to enter the parks but you do want to attend these, you will have to buy an extra ticket. One of the best things about these special events are not only the really cool themings and activities on offer, but also because they are special ticketed events, they have fewer people in attendance, so the parks are quieter. But these events can cost upwards of $100 per person. If you are visiting and there is a special event on, I would check out the Disney World website so you can see the dates and the pricing. It is worth noting that some events can only be booked via the UK telephone number or via the US Disney World website. If you are unsure how to access the US Disney World website, then I've made a video all about how to book special events using a VPN, and I will link that down below. The special events at Disney World are so amazing, and it's so fabulous to get to experience these during your trip, so if it is something you fancy doing, make sure you budget for it. If you are looking for unique experiences at Disney World, then you might want to book a tour or an experience. There are so many different experiences and tours available at Disney World, and they can really enhance your trip. To name just a few, there is the Keys to the Kingdom tour, which I have done and absolutely loved. With this tour, you get to go backstage at Magic Kingdom, learn all about the park, the history, you get to go backstage at some rides, and also go into the famous Utilidors underneath the park. A special experience that I've done was Savi's workshop. This is in Galaxy's Edge, where you build a lightsaber. You get to pick all the parts yourself, so you get to design your own kind of custom lightsaber, and it's a really special experience for Star Wars fans. With so many tours and special experiences on offer, there is a wide variety of different prices. Some experiences can cost as little as $20, whereas others can run into the hundreds. To give you an example of prices, I had a haircut at Harmony Barbershop on Main Street, and that cost me just $20. The Keys to the Kingdom tour cost me $114 with tax on top, and this was a 5-hour walking tour that included lunch and a commemorative badge. Whereas Savi's workshop, where you build the custom lightsabers, costs a eye-watering $250, and that doesn't include tax. If these sound like something you would like to incorporate into your trip, be sure to check out the Disney World website so you can see the full range and the pricing, so you know what to budget for. You can book tours and experiences via the US Disney World website, where you will need to use that VPN, so make sure you do check out that video that I put in the description down below. Another big cost you may encounter at Disney World is transportation. If you do stay at Disney World Resort, then you can take advantage of the free transportation at Disney World, and this will help save you lots of money. But do be sure to factor in the cost of getting to and from the airport. You can use a service such as Mears, operated by Sunshine Flyer, and this costs around $30 per person for a round trip. If you were going to use Lyft or Uber from the airport to your hotel at Disney, this can cost between $60 to $90. And if you are looking at a private taxi service, this can cost upwards of $150. If you are going to be using Lyft or Uber, then make sure you download both of the apps, because you will find they give you different pricing, so I would check both out and then go with whoever's cheaper. And of course, if you do use ride-sharing services, just be aware of surge pricing. At busy times such as park opening or after the fireworks, you can see a surge in pricing. And depending on the amount of available vehicles in your area, you may also get charged more if there aren't lots around. I actually know someone who went to the Vine and Outlet Mall, which is maybe a 15-minute drive from Disney World, and it ended up costing them $45 one way. So just be aware, if you are going to be using Lyft or Uber, you're going to need to budget probably more than you're anticipating, just to make sure you are covered for any surge pricing. Something that you can use on Disney property are minivans. These are a service that are actually operated by Lyft, but they are designed with polka dots so they look like Minnie Mouse. Not only are the minivans super cute, but they are also driven by a cast member, so you're getting the full Disney experience. But beware, even though they are operated by Lyft, they charge significantly more than a usual Lyft car would. For example, a Lyft ride on Disney property that would cost you $20 to $30, if you go in a minivan, can cost between $30 to $70. So yes, these are super cute and fun, but you are going to pay so much more for the design. If you are not staying at a Disney property and instead you are staying off-site in a hotel in Orlando, be sure to factor in the cost for transportation transportation as well. Many hotels do offer shuttles to the parks. Sometimes these are free, sometimes these are paid for, but it is worth noting that the times often aren't very good, or they do get full, and therefore you have to either wait for the next one or find alternative ways to get to the parks. So because of this, a lot of people go to their off-site hotels with every intention of only using the shuttles, and then end up having to use Lyft, Uber or taxis, and the cost quickly spirals. If you are staying off-site, just get as much information as you can in advance of your trip, such as the times of the shuttles, the frequency and the cost, and then you can work out whether you do need to factor in some money for additional Ubers, things like that. I personally love to hire a car in Disney World, and of course this is something you need to factor for. I love to try and get the cheapest rate possible, so I use Florida Discount Car Hire. They're an amazing website that compare prices between the big car rental companies such as Hertz, Avis, Alamo and many more. With them I've always had amazing prices on car hire, and something that I like is that you can also add additional insurance so that you are fully covered and do not need to pay out when you arrive at the desk and they try and upsell you more insurance. You can also rent sat-navs with them for very cheap, and I found them to just be the cheapest and best, most reliable company that I've used. There are lots of different car hire companies out there, but just be aware that when you go up to the counter when you arrive, they will often try and upsell you things like sat-navs and extra insurance, whereas usually it could be cheaper to do these things in advance than buying them at the counter. There are lots of websites where you can get these top-up insurances, so I would definitely check them out in advance because it will be significantly cheaper and a great way to save money. In Orlando and Florida, there are lots and lots of toll roads, but you don't have to be caught out by these. If you are coming from abroad, you can apply for something called the Visitor's Toll Pass. This helps you save up to 80% of the cost on toll roads. You simply visit their website, put in your details, and I paid $10 to put that onto my pass. When I then collected my car from MCO, there is a little booth in the car hire area where you collect your little tag, you hang it up in your car, and then you are good to go. If you're going to be using lots of toll roads, then of course you can put more than $10 on, but I didn't actually end up using the $10 the whole entire 3 weeks I was in Orlando. So when I returned back to the UK, I had a refund for the amount that I didn't use. If you are going to hire a car, then make sure you get this. This is such a top tip because you will save loads of money. Of course, if you hire a car, you do need to factor in fuel costs. The great news is fuel is much cheaper than in the UK. Across my last trip that was over 3 weeks, I spent less than $50 on fuel, which was fantastic. It is worth checking with your rental company what their policy is in regard to fuel. Some of them you can bring back your car empty, others you have to have a full tank. With my policy, I needed a full tank, and it had a strange caveat that you had to have filled it up from a gas station within 10 miles of the airport. Now at the airport there are gas stations, but they charge more than double the amount that regular gas stations charge. So I'm going to save you loads of money with this next tip. There is a website that I'm going to link below that gives you a list of gas stations that are within that 10-mile radius but are much cheaper than the airport gas stations. I went to a gas station that was just a few exits shy of the airport, and I got it for the regular price and saved myself loads of money, and I was still within that policy 10-mile radius, so it was absolutely fine. Of course, if you do have a car, then parking is something you need to budget for. The great news is if you are staying at a Disney World resort, you don't have to pay to park at the resorts anymore, and the parking is free, so there is no parking charges at Disney World if you are a Disney resort guest. If you are staying off-site and you're going to be parking in the parks, it costs $25 a day, so make sure you budget for this in advance because that will quickly add up. If you are staying off-site, also be sure to check out if your hotel has any parking fees or resort fees. I did a video recently all about the hidden charges and costs you can get at off-site hotels, so I will link that down below as well, but do check these so you know what to budget for in advance, because unfortunately a lot of people don't see the small print and they get a shock when they are charged hundreds of dollars unexpectedly when they arrive. So those are the day-to-day things you need to budget for at Disney World, and now I'm going to give you a list of all of the other things you need to budget for so you can be prepared for all of the costs of your trip in advance. Your hotel, your flights, your park tickets, airport parking if you're driving to the airport, an airport hotel the night before your flight, perhaps an airport lounge or fast-track security, airport transfers, holiday insurance, and most importantly, your ESTA. The ESTA is your visa waiver form, and this is essential to be able to enter into the US. If you cannot get an ESTA, then you will need to apply for a full US visa. So those are all the things you're going to need to budget for whilst visiting Disney World. I hope this video has been helpful and will make planning your trip that little bit easier. In the description down below, I will put links to videos that are relevant to this topic and also the ones that I mentioned in this video. And stick around to the end where I will have a link to a playlist to help you plan your Walt Disney World trip like a pro. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a most magical day. Bye bye.